Do you ever get stuck in the story you're telling yourself? My name is Amy Ballantyne, and we are at Power to the People Pleasers. So excited to have my guest, Gary, here today. Gary, welcome to the podcast.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Excited. So, Gary, you are a life coach, you are an integrity speaker, and we had the opportunity to meet briefly, and you shared a little bit about how people pleasing has shown up in your life. Can you help me help share that with our audience?
Sure. I didn't know I was a people pleaser. I thought I just loved to give.
Mhm.
And I thought the thing that was very interesting about people pleasing was it fed me to give. I didn't see it until COVID. COVID,
Mhm.
when I got into the lockdown, I had three kids under the age of 5. I was homeschooling. I was working from home, and I had a marriage to tend to, and everything was about everything else but me. And it was just very real when I couldn't, the system that I had that kept me able to please, but also feed myself wasn't there.
Mhm.
And so because of that, I, it was hard for me to do what I was doing without feeling resentment
Yeah.
and then hatred. And then it was one thing that was very amazing to me during that depression. I'll say it was depression. Mother blogs helped me the
Hmm.
most because now I understand what it means for you to be so focused on everyone else's needs. Everything is about everyone else but you, and you don't have enough in you to feed yourself.
Wow.
And so, because of that, I discovered that I played the nice guy and I let boundaries be crossed over and over inside and outside my house. And so that's where I kind of discovered I'm a type A people pleaser. I want to seem valued. And interestingly enough, I kind of discovered where it came from. Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, that's big. So walk me through then. You realized this in COVID.
Hmm.
You had this new awareness. What were some of the steps you took to help create the boundaries again and not feel resentment?
Well, one thing is you have to kind of really define the people pleasing in language where you can actually understand it. Because before you were saying, I'm giving,
Mm.
but you have to actually say, no, you're overstepping. And then I can't stress it enough. We really need to educate ourselves on people pleasing. We say people pleasing, we don't dive into it. And so code was the perfect place for anybody to learn about themselves.
Mhm.
If you missed that opportunity, that's on you. But I learned so much about myself, and I had to kind of go back, which is very hard. And so one place where I learned where people pleasing started was, I'll try to say this very quickly. At the age of 8, my parents stopped having Christmas because they were very religious and they listened to someone that said Christmas was bad.
Mm.
During that time, I started giving myself my own Christmas. I saved up my own money. I started taking care of myself. Then the story that I told myself was that I can take care of myself. I, no one else is really going to care about me. I'm going to take care of myself. So that meant I was going to be very independent, as well as during that time when I was around other people's needs were more important than mine. So I was able to focus on everyone else's needs. And by doing that, I got value instead of people
Mm.
focusing on me. So I had to really kind of go back and
Yeah.
try to figure out where it came from. So then I see that that's now I understand why I'm very independent. I don't know how to receive gifts. I don't. I love to give, but I don't know how to receive,
Mm.
and that plays a huge role on me knowing how to people please. So for me, I really need to define my boundaries and learn to say no, even if I know how to give, just so that I can create that healthy boundary. So that's where it started. You can do the extreme and just say no all the time. which I
Yeah.
did. I failed, I'll admit. But um, I have to really kind of find out who I'm meant to be, not
Mm.
who my insecurity wants me to be, if that makes sense.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And so you work with clients. How would you help your clients who are showing these type of things?
The biggest thing is to ask the right questions.
Mm-hmm.
It's never one. You can always start with a series of questions and figure out why are you doing something? Because a lot of things that we're doing, we don't know that we're doing it out of a place of brokenness, out of
Mm.
a place of I need to protect myself, out of a
Survival. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So we need to actually ask ourselves those things. Number one, number two, one of the hardest things to change, and I love how you said the story we tell ourselves,
Yeah.
is can you question the story that you tell yourself?
Mm.
Because I was reading something about self deception. The difference between a lie, which is totally not true, and deception is that deception has some truth in it. So you feel something like you feel like this isn't right. And so you create a story. Not only you create a story, you rationalize it because it has to make sense to you. You justify it, and then you jam anything else from counteracting that. So you have to let the other person heal themselves or question themselves or take that story out. If
Mm-hmm.
not, like you can have a lot of opinions, but they're going to have a reason and a justification for not wanting to do it. So it's going to take time. You
Mm-hmm.
have to be in a place that you want to kind of question that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I know the stories we tell ourselves is something that you talk about quite a bit.
Mhm.
Can you share with me an example? I guess you've already shared one example, but another example of where you've told yourself a story that really didn't serve you and how you came out the other side.
Definitely. So I'm married. Marriage is hard. It's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a during COVID, one thing that I was trying to do, which was weird. It was not weird, but when you get very frustrated, you say, you know what? I'm just going to do what makes me happy. I'm going to do whatever I feel. Keyword, I'm going to do whatever I feel. And so I was doing whatever I feel, but I wasn't serving my family. I was being very rude. I was not being respectful in certain ways. And so there was a time where my wife and I got a huge argument. We said all the negative things,
Mm-hmm.
things we shouldn't have said to each other. And I was like, I don't think I want to be in this marriage anymore. I don't feel like she's about me. We're not really that compatible. And I was saying this to myself. And then I do I do believe in God. And I said, you know what? I'm going to try this God thing again. And I told God, I do not feel like loving my enemy. I do not feel like loving my enemy. And I said this is a God moment, but this is the thought that came into my head. I said, who said anything about feel?
Mm-hmm.
And that hit me because one, it took me a while to get there because when I was going to see God, I got to a place of quietness and silencing and really kind of filtering out my thoughts. And when I got that, it hit me because I realized that the old saying, love is not a feeling, it's an action.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's my word. It has nothing to do with if I feel like it. And then I have to do it. And then another thought was, did I do everything that I was supposed to do? No. I didn't even do what I knew what I was supposed to do. I was so focused on what that other person was doing and wasn't doing that I wasn't focusing on the things I was doing. Then the last part, which was very impactful for me, was I said, okay, this is all good, but I don't have it in me. Sometimes I didn't have it in me. And so I literally said, I know this is the right thing, but I don't feel like it. And because I don't have the value, you can only give what you have. And so I literally had to find value in God. And I'm trying this anew, being very straight honest, because I gave up on this thing.
Yeah.
But I had to find value in God where I know that I am loved. And
Mm,
that's a hard thing to do where, like, you say, I'm loved, I'm loved, I'm loved. But to know that I am loved and I am valued and I have purpose,
mm,
it gave me the strength to, okay, let me do what I'm supposed to do. And because I did what I was supposed to do and not how I felt, it changed my marriage.
wow.
It changed my marriage. And so that's one of the things where it's like I have to start questioning how I feel, because when we're mad, we go through a huge list of this, that, this person's not this person's not there, they're not about them, forget them, I'm gonna give up, whatever. We need to start questioning the trigger and the habit, and the routine that
Mm,
we say to ourselves, because it's just keeping you in the same place.
yeah.
Even though the sad part is you don't want to be there, but you're staying there. My sister always said this, and I'm going to give her credit for this. She said, just because you can move around in your prison doesn't mean you're free.
Yeah.
And the story we tell ourselves keeps us in the same place. And we have the key to let ourselves out.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I had this conversation recently with someone,
Mhm.
and oh man, it was a hard one to be kind of. I wouldn't say I was really part of it. I was, asking some questions, but the person was so closed minded on their story,
Mm,
so determined to stay stuck, to stay in the barrier, to stay frustrated.
right.
And I just wanted to be like, hello. Like you're creating this
Right. Right.
this box, you're creating this
Mm,
problem because
right.
you're unwilling to see it from a new perspective.
That's real.
And that, oh man, that sometimes that can be quite frustrating. Now it
Mm,
wasn't a client. Most clients come because they want to have
right.
that
Of course.
conversation, right? They're
Right.
open to new perspectives,
Mhm.
new ideas. But this was a person who just was in my day, and man,
Mhm.
oh man, I if we could shout from the rooftop, examine the story,
Right.
right? Examine the
Right.
story that's keeping you
Right.
stuck and holding you back. And I
Right.
like what you said about feeling
Mhm.
and connecting to that. What's the story connected to the feeling? I,
Mhm.
I have a client who sometimes says, I wasn't really feeling like moving my body. And I know we're getting really, like, I'm getting very specific,
Right,
but
right, right.
something that really impacted me a while ago was, this idea that if I'm not really feeling like doing something in my business,
Mhm.
well, I'm not going to have much success if I'm just going based
Mhm.
on the feeling of wanting to do it. Right.
Correct, correct, correct. Facts.
I do believe that we want to tune in to what feels right and feels good
Mhm.
and aligned, but
Mhm.
only taking action when, like
Mhm.
you said, when you feel like it.
Mhm. Yeah, that's real. And that's why people need more coaches just like as yourself.
Mhm.
Because I went even through when I went through my coaching certification, they were telling me about the power of asking questions.
Mhm.
Because I want you to think about it. I was telling my friend this. Think about it. People are surrounded by so many people, but we're willing to hire someone to truly listen.
Yeah.
And that's the key. It's like where you're not asking yourself questions. You're looking for someone to tell you, and hopefully, let me go on social media. Let me go on Google. Who's going to call? But we need to literally, if we don't know the right question, we need to go to someone that can actually ask us a question. Now, give us an opinion, because I've been yelling at some. I remember there's a couple of people in my life, and I know you can attest to this. You need to stop doing this. It's not working. I want to shake you. Stop. That doesn't work. It,
That
it,
doesn't
it,
work.
it never works. And then that one person that asked that one question, and then they regurgitate exactly what you told them. I'm like, what? I just said that to you. But it's like you have to be willing to open that bottle to release that story.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
have to. If you want to hold on to that, but still hold on to something else, it's not going to work. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm happy for this, especially for people pleasers. There's a lot of people pleasers. The nice guy finishes last. I love this podcast. Like people need to have a place for them to not only speak, but to really feel and know that they are heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to circle back to a word that you brought up. I'm continually doing my own learning. I know you are. You're
Mhm.
saying you're reading
Of course.
books. I think that's part of why we came together for this podcast.
Mhm.
But I wanted to come back to the word you said of resentful. You
Mhm.
know, being a people pleaser, saying yes to so many things,
Mhm.
and then having that feeling of resentment after. I'd love to know for you, and maybe it's different for different experiences, but I'd love to know for you, does resentment happen for you around the fact that the person isn't reciprocating the behaviors or those, or is it more so that you're not being appreciated? How does it show up for you?
There's a place in both. Um, I really appreciate you bringing up the word resentful because you hear the word, but we don't look to define it. We define it ourselves. And so I didn't know my passive aggressiveness was tied to my resentment.
Mm.
And so I didn't feel appreciated in certain places. So I was doing things, but I wasn't happy. I was giving very snarky remarks. Um, I, you should know my value. You see what I do.
Mm.
And it was tied to I didn't feel appreciated. But I didn't even realize that somebody else, such as my wife, has her own issues.
Mm.
She receives and sees things differently. She's not going to totally understand it. Even if I try to explain it in a certain way, sometimes she understands things differently.
Yep.
And I can't be mad. I'm never going to forget when we first started dating. I'm an acts of service person, so I was doing a lot of things. She wasn't, so I thought she wasn't about me. But she is
Mm.
about um, words of affirmation. I think
Yes,
during that
talking about the
time,
love languages. Love
right?
that.
And
Yeah.
so during that part, I was resented because she's not doing what she wants, and so I'm doing everything, and I'm like, whatever. And so I didn't feel valued until I got an understanding. So
Mm.
there's one thing to gain knowledge. Social media is knowledge. Google is knowledge. There's another thing to get understanding and apply it correctly.
Practice. Yeah.
That's wisdom.
Yeah.
That's wisdom. So I held on to resentment. I see even maybe you can see that I see some of my older family members who are resentful that they didn't do
Mm.
something or went after anything, but they're gonna say, "Well, at least I have this. I'm doing this because they need to do this." But they're resentful. They're not happy. They didn't do it with a pure heart.
Mm.
And I don't want to do that just so that I can say something and hold it over them.
Yeah.
So I definitely dealt with that. I felt like I was not valued. But especially, and I'll be honest with my wife sometimes, it's hard for her sometimes to be vulnerable because
Mm.
she kind of deals a little bit with trust as well. So she that wasn't her MO. So just because someone doesn't do what you want them to do, does that make them wrong? And should I accept them or should I just keep complaining until they change and do what I want to do?
Mm.
What I did was I learned to accept and not bring that energy. And I realized something. When I got accepted, when I showed acceptance, she started showing me appreciation.
Ooh.
So it's weird. What we actually want has to be only gets changed, and you actually get what you want when you do what you don't want to do, and that's deal with and go through the resentment. I've been avoiding things. That's my issue. I know how to avoid. People pleasing is a form of avoiding.
Mhm.
I don't want to avoid. I don't want to be. I don't want to feel that pain. I don't want to do that confrontation. So I don't want to argue. I'll just let you have what you want to do.
Mhm.
That's avoiding. You have to kind of go through it. You have, and Will Smith said this, and I still hold true to it. He said, "Feel the fear and do it anyway."
Yes.
So you have to feel that feeling that you don't like, but do what you know you need to do.
And you can also, I mean, this is another reason why having a coach can be so powerful. I spend a lot of time coaching and mentoring my clients, and I'm sure you do
Mm-hmm.
as well,
Right.
around the clarity of the story they're telling themselves. And is it
Mm-hmm.
true? Is it
Mm-hmm.
possible that their partner could be having an opposite story like what
Right.
you've said, and is holding on to that story serving you? And
Mm-hmm.
then after that, it's helping them to get clear on the communication strategies and words and things that might actually help them walk through
That's
that
it.
fear, right?
That's
Because that's
it.
part of the problem. You can have all
Mm-hmm.
the clarity, but if you don't have the tools and the strategies of how to actually walk through the fear and
Right.
not avoid the conversation and have that maybe uncomfortable dialogue, but if you come to it prepared and you come
Right.
to it with more confidence
Right.
and love,
Mm-hmm.
right? That loving energy that, this is the story I used to
Right.
believe, and
Mm-hmm.
now I'm seeing it from a whole new side of
Right.
things.
Right. Right.
Can be very
You have to do something to get the feeling. Don't rely on your feeling and just stay there.
mhm.
And so, yeah, I love that. I am so for coaching now. Coaching is amazing. Coaching is amazing. I think everyone should go through coaching. Even if there's a bad coach, you could still get something because it's about asking yourself. It's like I say to this, I say this a lot. We're going through life as a house. And as we hit a pain or we feel something that we don't like, we build a room
Mm.
and we cover that room. And if it's a really bad, it's a big room, but we paint over that room. We paint over that wall. We walk over that. But then when you get into another significant relationship, they may want to knock on that room. And you still may have to, you're still trying to avoid it because avoiding after a while may stop the feeling, but it doesn't do away with it.
Yeah.
And so we have to deal with that. But if we're not asking the question, we're just going to keep walking around. Just keep walking around it. And just building all these rooms that no one could go into.
That's big. That's a great analogy. That's a great analogy.
Right.
So, Gary, this has been a great conversation. What's the point that you want to leave our conversation with, that you want the audience to hear from you?
The one thing that I learned through COVID and the reason why I actually got into coaching and speaking was the commentary that I read in this Bible that said, what you believe and what you do should not be separate.
Mm.
And that leaves you unaligned. Because, for instance, I know that I need to exercise. I know that. I believe it. But I'm not doing it because I don't feel like I don't have time. Excuses. So you believe something, but you're not doing it. You're not aligned.
Mhm.
So that's where integrity is. And integrity, that's why I'm fighting for integrity.
Mhm.
Integrity means two things: undivided and whole. And two, it is maintaining your ethics and your morals and beliefs in all situations, whether in peace and in war. When I'm in war, I became unaligned. I wasn't
Mhm.
doing what I knew what I was supposed to do. So I need to maintain what I believe and do what I believe. Love my wife because I said I was going to do it, not because I feel it. And that will also make you authentic. Because if you're whole, if you're not divided, if you're doing what you believe, you are doing, you are showing you your true self.
I love that.
And so because of that, now I'm in integrity. Now I'm living an authentic life. And now, in the weirdest way, I feel free to be me.
Mhm.
I've never felt free to be me, but I'm living the way I want to live, and I know I should live, that is right for me. And so that's what I want to leave people is know your beliefs, but also see your actions and see if
Mm,
they align. Figure out who you really want to be and see what you're doing. Because if you are unaligned, you're going to create different stories for you to stay broken.
wow. That was a great, great ending, Gary.
Thank you.
This has been an awesome conversation. I want to thank you so much. And
Thank you.
for those who want to continue the conversation with Gary, you can go to his website, garysteve.com.
Mhm.
And thank you again for being here today. And I want to thank all the people who've listened to this podcast and invite them to stay tuned for the next episode of Power to the People Pleasers. Have a great day.